Track 41.
Now, not only do we have lots of historical architecture here in the town of Tambridge, we also have a rich variety of famous residents. Of course, everyone has heard of the famous writers Jim Harman, Anna Collins, and Ian Cheriton, or IH Cheriton as he is better known, and they have all lived in our small town. In fact, Anna Collins, the celebrated romance novelist, spent all her life in this town. She lived by the town square, where there is a plaque to commemorate her. She died in 1968, and you can see her gravestone in Tambridge Cemetery. You may know Anna from her most famous work, The Pride of Angels, which won numerous awards and for which she was a runner-up for the Herald Prize in 1950. James Harman also lived here between 1975 and 1990. A best-selling horror writer, he got many of his themes for his haunting novels from this very town. He passed away a year after leaving Tambridge, and although he isn't buried in the town, we do have a statue of him on the roundabout as you enter the town. Now, I.H. Cheriton has been the Poet Laureate for 3 years, and he lives in Tambridge today. His home is the Red House by the river. Not only a poet, he has also written 10 novels that have topped the book sales charts. He always does a lot of work for local charities and is quite a gem in this town. Last, another famous resident of Tambridge is Sylvia Daniels. She grew up in Tambridge and went to the local comprehensive school here. You can see her childhood home just across the river by the post office. There are guided tours of the cottage on a Wednesday afternoon. It is quite easy to find as it is well signposted. Now, I am sure you all know her for her latest film, Planet Dust, which has just reached #1 at the cinema box office. But she wasn't always an actress. Before she headed for Hollywood, you could have seen her waiting tables in the Dorridge restaurant here in town. She often comes back to visit as her family all still live here. If you're lucky, you may even catch a glimpse of her.
Track 42. 1. Listen. 2. Wished. 3. Needed. 4. Look. 5. Changed. 6. Like. 7. Created. 8. Called. Track 43.
The final chapter is a murder mystery film set in South America. Written and directed by Bruce Chambers, it is a project very close to his heart. Chambers found inspiration for the film whilst travelling around South America. There, he heard about a Peruvian book which tells the story of the fight for gold in South America. Reading this story, he at once realised this was a film he had to make.
Track 44.
Welcome to the latest episode of Film Finest with me, Liz O'Donnell. The films I'll be reviewing in this episode are What Happens in the Night, the new horror film by acclaimed director Jan de Nyberg, and Happy as Larry, a new romance comedy starring Harrison Wyatt and Sonia Smith. Let's start with What Happens in the Night. Set in a small town in the 1950s, this film tells the story of 2 boys who are lost in the forest. The film has the feel of a comic book, as it's shot in black and white with occasional shots of vivid colour. De Nyberg, the director, said he wanted some elements to stand out, and he has used colour to do it. I would say quite effectively. He claims his inspiration for the film is his own experiences growing up in 1950s rural England. Living near a local wood himself, he often heard noises in the forest and imagined stories of what these noises could be. In fact, he still finds forests quite scary. This film is certainly memorable. What Happens in the Night is a film that will scare you. I wouldn't say it's the best horror film to come out this year, but it's certainly shot beautifully and it's not hard to follow. So, unlike some recent horror films, you don't have to sit in dedicated concentration for 2 hours trying to keep up with a complex plot. An enjoyable film, I would give it 4 stars. In Happy as Larry, Sonia Smith and Harrison Wyatt play 2 people who fall in love but cannot be together because of their families. It's the latest romance comedy film to come out of the Preston studios, and they're expecting big things from it. The build-up to the film has certainly been epic, with gossip about both co-stars in the papers. Rumour has it that Smith and Wyatt aren't the best of friends. In fact, on the set, they barely spoke to each other. I have to say, though, this doesn't come across in the film, and they look like a great couple. Happy as Larry is a move away from the usual films Sonia makes. She is better known for her roles in action films, but she has shown herself to be a capable comedy actress. However, I'm not sure this is the finest film to do it in. I'm sure both men and women alike can get something from this film, but the romance angle is overplayed and the laughs are few and far between. If you want romance, this film is fine, but if you want comedy, I would recommend seeing something else. I would give it 3 stars. Now, there are some new video releases which we are going to be talking about.
Track 45.
My new book, Famous for 15 Minutes, comes out on Monday, and today I'm going to talk about what fame means to us these days. Famous people are everywhere, and although we know nearly all there is to know about these people, their lives are splashed all over magazines and television, they've retained their mystery. The public are always eager to find out more about them, and this fuels the paparazzi to photograph them. It's true that there are more celebrities around than ever before, but the number of really important famous people probably hasn't changed greatly. This is because people become famous for only a short time. Andy Warhol once famously said, "In the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. And I think there's some truth in that. One day a person is famous and the next they are forgotten. Take, for example, contestants on reality television shows. After maybe 6 months, we never see them again. This also highlights another characteristic of fame. In the past, people became famous because of something they had done, or because of their talent. Nowadays, these things aren't necessary. I personally think this is a great pity. But let's move on to the winners and losers when it comes to fame. Well, many people think that celebrities are the losers in this new media world, but that isn't necessarily the case. Take, for example, actors and actresses. They often complain about a lack of privacy, but privacy is possible. There are many celebrities who aren't constantly in the papers. Much as they complain, they chase the publicity and then blame it on the media. In fact, the paparazzi who photograph the rich and famous are often seen as figures of hate for this. They come off much worse in the end because they are so disliked by the public and celebrities. But, in reality, they are making the celebrities and their managers even richer. In fact, because of the cult of fame nowadays, we can see media executives making even more money and celebrities signing multi-million-pound deals. And who pays for this? Well, all of us. Cinema and concert ticket prices have risen, and DVDs cost more than ever. Merchandising makes a fortune for the famous these days. And although we are paying for it, the rewards go to only a small elite, the big players, the stars and executives. But they miss a lot of the creative talent in the industry, like the people who write the screenplays. They are still on the same salary they were on 10 years ago. Executives certainly have a difficult job managing their clients, but they get rewarded well for doing so. I, for one, think these rewards should be more fairly spread.
Track 46.
Thank you for coming along to the Cultural Sydney Talk. I'm going to start by telling you about the Yellow Plaque Scheme, which has been running in Sydney for over 40 years and has been incredibly successful. When you are walking around the city, you'll see some buildings with a small, round yellow plaque on them. If you take a closer look, you'll see the name and details of a famous person who lived in that very place. This is a yellow plaque, and it tells you something about not only the history, but the surroundings of Sydney. We have at present 130 plaques up in the city. The scheme has been great for tourism, but it was really started to raise awareness of the rich history of Sydney, both locally and nationally, and we think we've managed to do this. We also wanted to make people aware of the impressive list of important people who have lived in this city, and we've certainly achieved that. But that's not all. Quite independently of our original aims, the scheme has also helped preserve some of the older and more important buildings in Sydney, because people now know that these buildings are a link to our past. Some of the buildings are actually over 180 years old, which for Australia is ancient. We actually think that this is where the scheme has achieved the most success in raising the profile of our rich history. Of course, it has helped tourism, but not only that, locals also walk around looking at the plaques. It has been really wonderful in highlighting our past. Some people are quite surprised to see who has lived here. Take Errol Flynn, for example. He was married in Sydney. We're planning on putting more plaques up, and a common question is, how can people nominate a figure to be put on a plaque? It's quite a simple process. Applications can be downloaded from our website. If you want to nominate someone for a plaque, you just need the person's name, where they lived, and you need 3 signatures to approve your application. Our panel then checks that all the data you've submitted is correct, and hopefully, within a year, a new plaque will be erected. But you can't nominate just anyone. A plaque can only be given to a person who is famous and has achieved something out of the ordinary, like an important politician or a world record-breaking sportsman, for example. We aim to have 50 new plaques up within the next 3 years, and we have plenty of funding to do so. Our funding comes from 3 sources: the local council, community donations, and the tourist board. Whereas in the past, the Tourist Board put in the majority of funding, now public donations count for 65% of all total funds. In fact, our funding is so healthy now, there are plans to expand the scheme. At the moment, we only have yellow plaques for all the famous people, but we are aiming to produce different coloured plaques so that people can do specific walks. For example, if they're interested in famous sports personalities, they can do a tour following the red plaques, the colour we are aiming to use for these people. We're looking at introducing grey, white and green plaques as well. We are thinking of using grey plaques to signify people who have done important work within the government. For example, our existing Prime Minister has one at his birthplace. And white plaques for those who have done good works in the community. We think these people really deserve some recognition and are happy to highlight them.
Lastly, our green plaques we think will be very popular. These will be for painters and sculptors, leaving our yellow ones for writers, actors, and other people of note. We do hope you enjoy looking at the plaques around the city. We have guidebooks on sale in the gift shop where you can find all the plaques. These are priced at $11.99.